Greetings. This is Bradford Donald Keller Townsend, and this is a live streaming event on the Forward Research channel. And I would like to discuss hydraulic fracturing. I'm still new to this from a technical standpoint, and I'm going to go now and try to find the chat information in case somebody there. I think I put up chat. Okay, I typed in hello friends. Well, there was big news. It took a while for me to discover it. The United States Geological Survey, which on their site says they are the only authorized source for natural resource reserves. I presume that's everything, copper, fossil fuels, etc. And they said in western Texas and southern New Mexico area, and I'd like to try to go to that site and screen share it. Although I'm not sure how to do it yet. They said they have 46.3 billion fossil fuel potential technologically recoverable barrels of oil using hydraulic fracturing and horizontal drilling, 181 trillion with a T, natural gas, cubic feet, and 20 billion liquid trillion barrels of liquefied natural gas. That's where they put it under pressure and turn the gas into a liquid through cooling, slowing down the molecules and pushing them together into a liquid form. What are the consequences of burning and combusting such a large amount of fossil fuels into our atmosphere? What should the policymakers of our government do with the fact that we have doubled our potential fossil fuels? A lot of the slides I've used in my 100+ videos, I have a couple that shows the estimated reserves, and these are technical terms, and I know that there's half a dozen different terms having to do with what they call a reserve, or how much they think is in the ground that's recoverable. I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty details of all the different terminology and jargon, but 10 years ago, 11 years ago, the slide said they thought there was 30 billion barrels of crude oil remaining in the United States. Adding another 46 billion, then, and if we're using 20 million barrels a day in the United States, plus what was remaining of that 30 billion before, that's a tremendous amount of oil and natural gas, tremendous amount of sulfur dioxide, ozone, aluminium, lead, and other particulates that could get into the air. Internal combustion engines, chainsaws, weed trimmers, and etc. A lot of moped type small scooters have very poor emission systems and put particulate matter and lots of pollution into the air. So it's a big issue. I would like to give a little testimony. My stepbrother Jay died of mesothelioma from being in the Navy. He served, like I did, on an aircraft carrier where they had asbestos coverings of the steam pipes and many of the pipes um, and breathing that in. And my uncle, Craig, was sprayed by Agent Orange serving in Vietnam as a military policeman, and gets a disability pension for that. Um, my three of my children for about 4 years had to have daily breathing treatments where I had to put a mask over their face and get a nebulizer and put medicine in there, a few drops, and water, and it would create a mist, and I'd have to hold them, and and rock them in a rocking chair every night, get up once or twice during the night and give them breathing treatments. My mother and my stepfather both have asthma, so it's personal to me, air pollution, and my partner, Brittany, too, has respiratory issues. I have good lungs. Baruch Hashem. That said, almost everyone I know seems to have some kind of health-related issue from pollution. I do, as I was a frogman in the Navy and swam in polluted waters in harbors and such, and have more an internal problems with my digestion, and was poisoned that way. And frogmen in Israel are given pensions for having to swim in polluted waters. You need frogmen to check to make sure no one has planted bombs underwater on your ships or on your underwater structures. And you train planting bombs if you were in to prepare for a wartime situation where you would plant bombs on the opponent's vessels and on their structures. So, I have a lot, I'm personally very passionate and about air pollution. I don't own any internal combustion engines, an automobile or lawnmower or a chainsaw or anything like that combusts fossil fuels. I do live on the grid in Indianapolis because I have family I need to be close to in case they need me, who have health issues, and I want to be there if anybody needs me. And need to be close. My partner, she has health issues and needs to go to doctors and contact them frequently and get to the pharmacy and all that. So while I'd prefer to live in a rural area off the grid, even if I had to pump my own water and that kind of thing, I'd do it rather than pollute the air and the waters and the earth, and just grow my own food and then go to the farmer's market and sell what I don't need. And I'd have strawberries and apples and everything like on my grandparents' farm. I have, orchards and bushes and, grow blueberries and raspberries. I really like pears and apples and fruit. I prefer horticulture over animal husbandry, and maybe have a horse and a carriage to get around. That's the lifestyle I think would suit me, and I think is morally correct and ethically correct. If we're going to burn billions of barrels of oil and the trillions of cubic meters of natural gas, there's more than just the CO2. I almost think the CO2 is a way to get people distracted from the real problem, which is pollution. We have high rates of cancer in the United States. It's estimated that half of the American population will die of cancer. It's a really bad problem, and the chemicals, that is why I do not monetize, because whatever company, I don't want to associate with a company that is doing anything that I think is unethical or immoral. And there's lots of companies that are horrific polluters, and I don't want to be associated or act immorally, stealing money and committing fraud and doing things. I don't want to be associated with a enterprise unless I'm confident that they are doing business in an ethical way. I had forgotten that I needed to have a program running in the background called OBS to live stream, so I missed the first start time. There was one individual that was there waiting, other than myself, to watch the video. Maybe one of my ex-sailor shipmates out in Kansas, who seems to follow me kind of closely. That said, this is huge. I need to think further about what to do about getting these messages out in a good way. Some of the environmental non-for-profits I don't agree with, and I don't want to go into that right now. We need radical changes in our lifestyle for our own health as individuals, for our loved ones, our immediate family, for our clan, for our tribe, and for all of humanity. This mechanical internal combustion engine burning civilization, people tend to focus on the high tech on their mobile microwave phones and forget about things like ships and trains and bulldozers and cranes and such, that the semi-tractor trailer 18-wheeler or more wheeled major truck that is powered by a diesel engine. And we have one of the largest diesel engine manufacturers, Cummins Engine, here in Indiana. And as an engineer, I can tell you that they are brilliantly engineered and highly refined and sophisticated engines. And you need diesel fuel, which is a larger molecule to or structure to power big vehicles like 18-wheeler trucks and mining machinery and excavators for construction. Gasoline doesn't have the oomph when it burns and when it gives off gases that push the pistons. That's why all your big machinery has to be diesel powered and cannot be powered by gasoline, let alone lithium ion batteries. And there is no batteries with the energy density and the capability of powering something like an excavator or an asphalt spreader machine that you see keeping the roads drivable. Periodically, they need to be improved upon, and the roads only go so long because of the degradation of having large vehicles or just a large volume of even light vehicles going across the roads. That's one of the big uh-ohs of horizontal drilling and hydraulic fracturing, is that the roads and bridges in the rural areas, let's say West Texas and New Mexico, North Dakota, having all that heavy vehicles going across rural roads that don't get much of a maintenance or there's not much of a budget allocated to them. And the workers, it's a hardship. I've been up and down the whole ladder of construction, from unskilled laborer to general superintendent of a large commercial construction projects, and owned my own successful general contracting company. And I'm over 6 generations of a commercial contractor. And, I remember being on construction sites with my great grandfather as he built Indiana University Bloomington and other government buildings out of limestone and marble, at least on the facade or the exterior covering. And him carrying me around or tagging around behind him while he ordered around all these men sometimes dozens of them on the construction site. And he was very jolly and amicable. He wasn't one of those order givers. He would say please and thank you, and was popular. They lit up when they saw him. Their eyes sparkled because they liked my great grandfather and thought he was one of their mates, you know. So shipmate type relationship. You get close bonds in construction because the work is dirty and dangerous, and you need to have your workmates watch your back while you work. It's like the firemen and fishermen, construction, being in the military, they have that quality of camaraderie. I was hoping to go for a half hour. I'm running out here. I think I've made my points about particulates and pollution. I do think that CO2 and methane are greenhouse gases that, and in the nighttime, when your part of the world is in darkness, they, the structure or shape of them geometrically, topologically, they keep infrared radiation from being emitted out into outer space, and that acts as an insulating blanket, is the analog for that. And methane is 20 times more powerful, and the respiration or burps of cows from their multiple stomachs is a major form of methane. There's permafrost methane in the northern and far southern latitudes of it that may be released, which would be a huge, big explosion burp of methane into the atmosphere. I am of the opinion, and I'm open to changing my mind on this. I'm not settled. It seems like the correlation from the solar sunspots and climate change, in that the sun's magnetic field that protects us from galactic and solar radiation from the solar wind and from the solar wind of all the stars, they don't just send out X-rays and that type of thing and radio waves. They also send out, you know, all the way up the periodic table, starting with, you know, protons, which is a hydrogen ion, different configurations of hydrogen, diatomic helium, lithium, iron, and so on and so forth. And this huge amounts, millions of tons, metric tons of matter are spewed out of the stars every second, radially in all directions. And so we're flying into that and getting hit by it all the time. And that's where the aurora borealis comes from. As most of it is ionized, 99% of the universe is ionized plasma. So it gets sucked in by the magnetic field protecting the Earth, and the magnetic field is acting up right now and moving around. The solar's magnetosphere is acting up, and all that cosmic activity. And I think we're even in an open spot in space, because space isn't empty. It's got all kinds of matter in it. And we might be going into a more materially dense section of space. And that is hypothesized, and it's still up, not settled science, that may create more clouds, and more clouds prevent sun from the albedo effect from is affected, and the sun's warming, and even a small change in the square meter energy hitting. And then we have not only CO2, we have jets with their contrails zipping around, and they have all kinds of additives. And I don't think anybody is checking. They might be putting toxic stuff in there just to get rid of it, because it's cheaper to put it in jet fuel or put it in Roundup or whatever. There have been big lawsuits where companies have had to pay fines for having toxic substances, in their agricultural products or in their fuels, that and they're not covered by the media. because they are large-scale advertisers. So, a farmer may, have good intentions growing his potatoes in Idaho or soybeans in Indiana and spraying it with some petrochemical, to keep fungus away or keep pests away or keep weeds away. And he doesn't know it, but, what the ingredients that are listed are probably in there, but it's much more profitable for the company to dump in any toxic waste. And it might even be from a different subsidiary of a giant corporation that it makes stainless steel or something and has a toxic material that's produced in one of their factories. And then they put that into, some kind of a agricultural product. And then they take that and they spray that on their strawberries or their melons in Chile. And then you go to your local, supermarket, Gigantostore, and purchase fruit for your smoothies. I like drinking fruit smoothies with almond or soy milk. And boom, there you go. You didn't know it. You got a bunch of toxic molecules ingested into your body, from that import. They will go to maybe a developing or middle income country that doesn't have the resources to check to see what the herbicide, pesticide has in it. And so they dump toxic waste from one of their subsidiaries, into the mixture, and it's spread all over the crops. And then some of the crops are imported all over North America. So that's the kind of things that are going on. The commercial media is that. It has advertisement commercials. It's there to sell you soap, deodorant, pickup trucks, clothing, and that type of thing, things that consumers buy, pops, with aspartame or with sugar in them and that kind of thing. And then say that's, if you want to have a happy, joyous life, purchase whatever pop. Well, that is, that's, what they're there for. So if you're watching a commercial television station, that's who's paying, like say I'd enjoy a show, I admit it, the Vikings, because I, have Northern European heritage, and but I know that the show's there to get eyeballs on their commercials. Same with Versailles or with a National Football League American football game. The beer companies, the pickup truck companies especially, like to get that male purchaser, potential customer eyeballs, seeing their new pickup truck series that's coming out for the next year's cycle. I hope you're doing well. Let's try to keep improving ourselves and becoming more knowledgeable and wise together. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to find some other outlets for all this content that I created. Feel free to email me if you'd like to collaborate. I've collaborated as a scientist and as a businessman, and I enjoy collaborating with people. My email is townsend.brad@gmail.com if you'd like to shoot me an email. I'm going to say shalom, that is peace in Hebrew, and in the King James Version of the Bible, Joshua says, "Be strong and of good courage." Thank you very much, and have a good day.